And we're live.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to another Josh and Shaun rambling show. By the way, as we are in lockdown over here in the UK, I've got my quarantine and chill sweater on because, it's stay at home. Stay at home. And that's the message I would like to give to everybody in the UK right now. Stay at home. Yeah. So, Josh, how's your lockdown week been?
I found I was clearing out some stuff. I found an acceptance letter from an old college I was going to, like a school sixth form I was going to go to.
Oh, obviously you're not going there anymore.
No, but it was one of the, I don't know, it was one of the best ones in the country. I ended up applying for some reason. It was one sort of fairly nearby, and I got accepted. And now I started questioning my life choices after I read it and realised I declined the invitation.
True, but then you're moving house soon, quite a distance away from London, so it would be pretty difficult for you to go there now anyway, I'd guess.
Yeah. I'm using the camera on a 2010 MacBook.
Yeah, we've had this discussion before we went live because Josh's iPad had a bit of problem with StreamYard, so he's had to revert back to his MacBook. And as we all know, MacBook FaceTime cameras are pretty damn awful. So if you're listening, Tim Cook, sort it out.
Well, this is 10 years old, to be fair.
And it's a 10-year-old one.
Yeah.
But I'm not being funny, even the ones you get on the brand new ones today aren't that good.
Ones are that. Well, we might be able to find out what the M1s are like soon. So I'm still making my decision. So I've cancelled both. For a very long story, cancelled both of the M1s now, and we've received the full refunds for both of them. So that's good.
Hey.
So I ordered an M1 MacBook Air off the internet, and it said it would come in 29 days, 36 days, because they were getting stock from Apple. And then I saw another one, a different colour, a space grey one, had come in stock for next day delivery. So I emailed and cancelled the silver one that I had ordered and ordered a space grey one that was meant to be in stock for next day delivery. Well, the space grey one was not in stock for a next day delivery, and because I'd already cancelled the silver one, so I had to try and cancel the space grey one that was coming to this house and not the new house. The silver one was coming to my grandparents, but it got cancelled before I could uncancel it. So through that situation, I've now got no laptops on order, and I'm trying to making my decision as to what I will go with next.
I mean, it may be worth waiting to see because something's going to drop in the spring.
In the spring, you think?
Well, I would be. I think March there's going to be an event, and we're probably going to see some more M1 MacBooks, some more M1 Macs. Put it that way, whether they be MacBooks or the desktops or what, I don't know, iMacs, should I say. We're probably going to see AirTags at last. We're probably going to see AirPods Pro 2. And maybe some other things as well. But those, I'm in two minds because obviously we have the next level up, the 15-inch MacBook Pros, the next level up, and the 16-inch MacBook Pros to come yet. I kind of think they might come in June. I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry?
Okay. Yeah, so June.
Yeah. I might be wrong. They might come in March. But then we've also got iMacs as well. You see, there's a lot to get. There's a lot to get through this year. I mean, I know they said it's a 2-year transition. We're already kind of 6 months in ish. But I would imagine I'm going to guess that this year, before the end of 2021, all of the MacBooks would have been updated to M1, and I would probably think all of the iMacs as well. And then they'll be probably into next year. Be looking at the pros, the Mac Pros. So I'm going to say something's going to come in March.
See, my problem is
I
don't know whether I really want to be spending much more than 1,100 on this. So that would rule out anything. That would rule out anything with 4 ports.
Yeah. Okay.
And it pretty much narrows it down to a few options. I could go for. So there's an option for a base model Air, which is what I had ordered for 830, which is quite a good deal for a base model Air, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Or the one up from that, the Air with the 512 storage, but the 8 gigs of RAM for 1030. Or the base model Pro for 1070.
Nice.
I don't know.
I'm umming and ahhing between, because at the moment I've got a 15-inch 2017 model MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
So obviously the upgrade to that's probably going to be this. Well, it will be the 16-inch because the 16-inch is already out, but not the M1 obviously. So they've already replaced the 15-inch MacBook Pros with the 16-inch versions. So obviously I'm waiting for the 16-inch MacBook Pros to come out. But with I'm in an RE, I might actually get a 13-inch one, but the higher, obviously not the ones that are out at the moment. The higher spec ones. See what comes out with those. So I'm going to play it by ear and see what happens.
What would make you rule out the base model Pro or even the base model Air? To be fair.
I mean, to be honest, they probably do what I want to do, but I always like to think. Probably, I mean, I want to look into because if I buy one this year, it's going to last me probably 4 years because this one's 4 years old now. It's 2017 model, so 2021 it's 4 years. So I tend to upgrade. I don't. Whereas I get a new phone every year, I get a new watch every year. When it comes to me Macs, it tends to be every 4 to 5 years. So I would want probably something. I'd rather go with the higher spec, 13 or 16-inch models, to know that it's got enough oomph in it to last, to run the latest stuff for a few years out. And if I do want to start doing anything more sophisticated, that's going to have take up much more more processor power and stuff like that, then obviously I've got that headroom there as well. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Photo editing. I mean, I do a lot of photo editing, which the Mac I've got at the moment is perfectly fine with. But then, say I want to get into videos and I want to do video editing and stuff like that. And okay, yeah, I could do it on this, but then rendering videos, even on my MacBook, 15-inch, it takes a lot longer than on the latest M1 Macs, MacBook Airs. Do you know what I mean? And things like that. So and it's not just that either. Is running Xcode and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it can handle it, but it does take time. If you get what I mean. So I can imagine, these new chips, M2 or M1X or M1, whatever they call them, that are going to come in the next batch. Would fly through things like that. So that's what we're hoping for anyway. So yeah. Do you want to hear about my obviously I'm still haven't got any AirPods Max. I've got a handbag case. I've got some ear cups, but still haven't got any AirPods Max. So anyway, an update on that because the box actually came. Obviously, anybody that didn't know, I had issues with my AirPods Max. They came, I think it was like the 16th of December, and they had intermittent connection. So it kept dropping. The connection kept dropping out. Obviously, I did all the usual, resetting them and all that palaver, and pairing them and repairing them, and turning my devices off and turning them back on. And I did it on all my devices. So obviously, I contacted Apple support. Described the issue, and straight away they were like, "Oh right, looks like we're going to have to get them in for probably being replaced." So I guess it was a known issue. sounded like it was, because they didn't normally, when you contact Apple support, they're kind of like, oh, right, try this and try this and try that, do this, and even if you said you've done it before you've rung them, they're kind of like, oh, would you do it again whilst we're online, kind of thing. But they didn't even go through any of that, so that's what kind of says to me that it's probably a known issue. Anyway, they shipped me a box on the 20th of December. The box arrived on the 31st of December, 11 days later, and it was supposed to have been 2 business days. Now, it was over the Christmas period. Obviously, there was bank holidays in there, and I think Royal Mail were a bit inundated with stuff this Christmas. So it arrived then. Obviously, I was at work on New Year's Eve, so I didn't get it till I got home, which was like 7 o'clock, and then it was New Year's Day, so I didn't actually post them back until Saturday, the 2nd. It got there on Tuesday this week. Got an email saying they received them, and then I got an email again like 20 minutes later saying that they were looking at them, and then I got an email about an hour later saying that they'd run diagnostics and they were going to send me some replacement ones, and then I haven't heard anything since. I've been on today. You can go on to your case number, and it just says replacement product pending. So it's kind of like they obviously haven't got any to send me. So I'm kind of hoping I haven't got to wait till March, because if you order them online at the moment, that's when the shipping date is. And I'm kind of hoping that I haven't got to wait all the way till then. So yeah, I'm getting a bit kind of annoyed to a degree. So if I haven't had anything, heard anything, an email saying that they're shipped by kind of Tuesday, because that'll be a week, I think I'll contact Apple support again and kind of like try and get some ETA on them, when am I likely to have them? Because if it's going to be into March, I think I might just have a refund, to be honest.
Would you buy another pair, or would you just give up and not have them at all?
I would probably buy another pair, but I would probably wait for them to come in stock again, to be honest.
Right.
Do you get what I mean? Rather than... See, the problem we've got at the moment is all the Apple stores closed.
Yeah.
Because they were actually, up until when the stores closed, they were in stock in Apple Birmingham.
Yeah.
And the pain in the bum thing is if I could have been able to have got a Genius Bar appointment at Apple Birmingham, I could have swapped them out quite easily.
Yeah.
But the problem was getting Genius Bar appointments, because obviously with a lot of other stores, like all the London stores and all that were closed. They got closed before Christmas. Genius Bar appointments were difficult to come by. And obviously now there isn't any because they're closed. So, and we don't know how long they're going to be closed, because obviously, if you haven't heard, if you're not from the UK, we're in lockdown again now. So all non-essential retail is closed. It sounds like it's going to be at least until the middle of February at the very, very earliest. But most probably until the end of March, beginning of April.
But you've had some interesting information you were forwarding on to me. I don't know, you haven't tweeted it, so I'm interested. Maybe you weren't meant to forward it on to me, but you did.
What information?
You gave a very detailed list of things that you said to me.
Oh, about the lockdown?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's not definite.
Well, how do you find? Where do you get this?
Oh, stuff? I got people inside. I know things. It's not definite, but there is probability of the lockdown restrictions becoming even more stricter at some point next week, possibly as early as Monday, to make it more akin to March last year. Because currently,
what you said was stricter.
Currently, non-essential retail, for example, can operate click and collect.
Yeah.
Now, last March they couldn't; they were closed completely. For example, McDonald's is open for drive-through. Last March they weren't; they were closed completely. Starbucks and Costa Coffee are open for takeout. Last March they weren't; they were closed completely. So, I think the argument is, and it has been said, it's been on the news a little bit actually this week, that the government actually, today actually it was on the news, the government are quite worried because there seems to be a lot more people out and about in this lockdown than there was in the one in March last year.
100%.
And the problem is the more things that are open and the more things that are providing services, the more excuses it gives people to leave their homes.
Yeah.
When you think about it, Boris Johnson sat there at 8 o'clock on TV on Monday night and said, and I will quote his words, once again, the government is instructing, actually his word was, once again, the government is instructing you to stay at home.
Yes.
That was the instructions. Apart from 4 very specific reasons, obviously, to go and shop for essentials. I'm not being funny, but a Costa coffee, a Starbucks coffee isn't really essential. Neither is a McDonald's. Obviously to go get medicine, medical care appointments or treatment, obviously, or COVID test. And the other one was to provide, to go and help or provide essential services for somebody who is vulnerable. So if you've got a member of your family that's vulnerable, who is shielding, or who isn't able to go and get their medicines and stuff themselves, you can go and get them. Oh, and the other one is for daily exercise, but that must be local. Problem is what do you class as local? So the rumours that I've heard is they're like making that a 5-mile radius thing of your home.
That makes it.
And they've done that in Wales. Yeah, they've done that in Wales in all lockdowns.
Right, but that would make England stricter than the last lockdown in March.
It would do. They are apparently reviewing what is deemed essential. So that could mean that things like Costas and Starbucks and garden centres and things like that. Garden centres are open fully. You can go into a garden centre. I don't understand that. DIY stores, B&Q, Wix's, you can walk into it's not even click and collect. You can go in it. You can go browse it. You go to places like, Home Bargains. They're deemed as essential because they sell food, but the vast majority of their shop, over 75%, is actually general merchandise stuff. Well, yeah, but it's not food. Now, to me, they shouldn't even be open.
B&M Bargains has local B&M Bargains actually has strung out this. Those big plastic signs they get, those massive ones that they hang across railings. They've actually
saying we are open. Yeah.
No. It's actually I more amusing than that. I thought it actually says we're classed as an essential retailer. Yeah. They're bragging about it.
It's pathetic, and like the range. Oh, hang on a minute, we've never sold food before, but hang on, we're on lockdown. We'll squeeze in an aisle and then we can open up. I think that the government are looking at things like this, where people are trying to navigate around the legislation, because there's obviously the letter of the legislation, and then there's the spirit as well, isn't there? And there's always going to be the middle. There's always going to be the edge cases. There's always going to be the grey area, and I think there's too many businesses that are going around in the grey areas right now. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like I said before, the more reasons you give people to leave the house, the more they are going to leave the house.
Yeah.
And the more people leave the house, then the more COVID is going to spread.
I haven't seen the big roads of London where I was taking all those pictures. I was taking pictures of them and posting them on Twitter. Yeah. I haven't done it recently, but I have seen the roads, and I can tell you for certain that they are busier than it was during the Christmas period.
Yeah, it's
actually worse than Tier 4. There's traffic jams on the motorways coming up and down.
The roads around here where I live, they're definitely quieter than normal.
Yeah,
but they're definitely a lot busier than they were in March last year.
Yeah, but I would actually say ours are busier than they were in Tier 4.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? So apparently they are looking at things like that, and there's also these things you see. They're also on about the standing bubbles. where people can
Yeah,
join the
that's
bubble.
yeah, because bubbles don't do much.
And currently, as well, at the moment, you can meet one other person from another household for exercise outside. And I think that is going to go as well, because the problem is they're trying to stop it spreading. You can't stop it spreading within a household. It's virtually impossible. Very difficult at the very least.
Who did it?
Well, you did it, yeah. Well, that you know of. I mean, you could be asymptomatic. Maybe you didn't do it.
Don't my grandparents certainly don't. I don't think they.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very difficult to stop. Once one person has it in a household, it is extremely difficult to stop it spreading within a household. So what they're trying to do is stop it spreading between households. So why would you even risk meeting somebody out of another household, even if it is outside, socially distanced and stuff like that? This is, and there was that case, wasn't it, yesterday, the Derbyshire police with those two women that went for a walk at a local reservoir, and they got fined £200 each. Now, to be fair, they were quite local to where they lived. They were probably, even if they bring in this 5 mile radius thing, I think they would be within that. But they still got fined £200 for being out and about because Derbyshire police, because they drove there. Derbyshire police basically said, if you need to get in your vehicle to drive somewhere, then that's not exercising in your local area, is it?
Right. Yeah.
And they kind of got a point. Because to me, it's kind of like, well, why do you need to drive there? If you need to drive there, you're going too far.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I don't. I do make, and I did in the last lockdown, made a point to going out every day for a walk because it's good for you. It's good to go and get some fresh air. But I walk from home. And I walk back home. I don't get in the car and drive somewhere. I don't get in the car and I mean, obviously, I live in Shropshire. Josh is quite familiar with Shropshire. He will know that there are a multitude of beauty spots in the Shropshire area. Absolutely loads of them. There's the South Hills.
No, Shaun's area as well. Specifically, I mean, I think the best bits, if you're ever going, I think the best bits, you should definitely check out Ditherington. Lovely, lovely walk down Featherbed Lane. But none of it tops the two I'm going to tell you now, right? There is just by the shopping park, Meal Brace, the big place. It's lovely, lovely, lovely down there. But and also I think the possibly the best bit is around. Definitely check out Halsco.
Stop being facetious, Josh. Anyway, there's a lot of beauty spots around Shropshire. I live in the nice part, by the way. And by the way, even our office area is nothing compared to your good area down in London. So stop moaning. There's a lot of beauty spots in Shropshire, and a lot of them not too far away. I mean, the Wrekin, I can go and climb the Wrekin, which is probably about 9 miles away from my house. Now, not too far, 10, 15-minute drive. But would I do it in lockdown? No. Have I done it in lockdown? No. I did it last summer when we weren't in lockdown, but I didn't do it during the lockdown because it's too far. I have to drive there. I mean, technically, I could get on my bike and cycle there. To be fair, and when I was younger, I did used to do that. But still, to me, that is going too far out of my local area.
So I wouldn't be allowed to cycle around, say, past the 5 miles. Is that what? Or like if it was you're in your moral code, would I be allowed to say cycle 6 miles away before this restriction has been introduced?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose what they're saying is, I mean, if you're cycling, I suppose it's a bit like because you're getting exercise, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you probably be within your rights there. It depends on the context as well. If you're just going for a cycle ride, if you went for a cycle ride 8 miles or 6 or 7 or 8 miles to a Costa Coffee to get a Costa, then that's probably not really within the spirit of the legislation. But if you just went on a cycle ride and then back home, and you happen to be that distance from the house, then I would say it was.
You purposefully aiming this one at me.
I'm not. I was just using that as an example. I mean, it'll be fun. You must have a Costa closer to your house than 5 miles.
Sure. Yeah, I have 3 within about 2 miles.
Well, there you go then. So what you're whinging about, you can go to Costa and still be within the legislation, the letter of the law as it stands at the moment.
My thing with Costa is, you see, I do things that are so stupid that I like to go to multiple branches. I don't like to frequent the same branch.
Only because you like to rip them off.
Well, you see, if you go to the same branch, right, every like second day, and every single time, you're always claiming loyalty points or earning 250 in the one transaction.
You just go in when you got a different member of staff on.
I do that.
It served you last time.
I do that.
So you have more than one person in there working, you know.
That's what I do, and there's one of them that uses the rack, like the little rack. I don't know if yours have it. One of ours has a little rack where they put in the click and collect orders from your app, and just staple your name to it. But they actually use it. They don't just have one. So sometimes I will go and order several things from different accounts, and then I can just go and pick them all up from the rack. But I make sure the accounts are all in the same name.
True.
So I could get like a millionaire's shortbread for free, then I could also have a brownie for home for free, and I could just go and get them both.
What's 20 years old today?
20 years old today?
Yeah.
20?
20 years old today. Launched in 2001.
iPod?
Nope.
I have no idea.
iTunes.
Oh.
Yep. iTunes Store, 20 years old today. What's 14 years old today? Well,
iPhone.
iPhone. Well, it's not technically 14 years old. It was first announced 14 years ago today. Obviously, it didn't launch about another. It was June, I think it was. Was it about another 5 months later? It actually got started being on sale. But yeah, the original or the OG iPhone was announced by Steve Jobs.
I think we should just have a moment of silence for iTunes.
14 years ago today.
Sadly, in 2019.
It's still there.
No, it's not. It's called music now. It sadly died in 2019, much in the way that Elvis Presley died. It was born a smooth-running, fast application, and it died only 18 years later.
The iTunes Store is still there. I still have an iTunes app on my phone and my iPad.
Yeah, but the iTunes application is dead.
Yeah, true. Well, no, because Apple Music only streams stuff, doesn't it? You can't buy and download. Because you see, you've got two options.
If you go now, you won't find iTunes.
The iTunes Store is still there.
No, is it called iTunes Store on Big Sur?
Oh, I don't go on it on there.
Because it's called Music now.
Yeah, but on your iPad it's iTunes.
Yeah, I don't use it on my iPad though. I would use it on my Mac
and on the iPhone, obviously, because obviously on your iPad and your iPhone you have the Music app, and then you've got iTunes app. Now you go in the Music app, obviously for Apple Music to listen to all your music if you're a subscriber. But some people, I don't know why, because I haven't bought a music track for ages, but there are still some people that prefer to buy their music. You can do that through the iTunes Store, and you can still pay your 79p a track, $9.99 for an album, etc., if you choose to do so. And there are some people that still do that.
Yeah, but it's basically dead.
Well, for most of us, yeah. I suppose if you subscribe to any sort of music streaming platform, whether it be Apple Music, Spotify, whatever it is, Amazon Music, Tidal, whatever, and then probably, because kind of it doesn't really make sense, does it? If you're going to pay that subscription every month to go buy music to download.
It's not just that. iTunes Store was targeting the people who wanted their music legitimate, and now if you want your music legitimately, you'll stream it. If you wanted to download music locally, you will get it in other ways.
Yeah, I suppose the other difference is with iTunes Store, it isn't just music these days, because you've got movies on there and you've got TV shows that you can purchase as well.
Same pretty much.
Well, yes and no, because I suppose the difference between there isn't. See, with music, it doesn't really matter which music streaming platform that you go with, whether that be Spotify, whether it be Apple Music, Amazon, whatever title, the catalogue is pretty much exactly the same. There are some differences to a degree, but 99% of it, you can get 99% of tracks on one, and it's the same as on all the others. Now, the problem with music streaming, TV streaming and movie streaming and things like Netflix and things like that is they've all kind of got different catalogs. I mean, you can't get anything on all of them, can you? You've got if you want everything, you've got to subscribe to about 7 or 8 different platforms.
Which is really easy and very cheap if you use my method.
Oh, here we go.
You simply sign up to the trials of every single one. For example, I wanted to watch something on Now TV just today. I wanted to watch a show on Now TV before we came on the stream. So I now have, for 7 days, a Now TV trial. I'll simply cancel that and put in another card and get it for another 7 days if I want it. Because if it's not on Netflix or Amazon Prime, I refuse to pay for it.
So you pay for Netflix and Amazon Prime then, I'm guessing?
No, my parents pay for Netflix and Amazon Prime.
I see.
So if it's not on one of those two, I'm not paying extra for it because I find the price is quite expensive. If you go on iTunes Store, which you insist is still a valid thing in 2021 that people actually do, if you actually if you actually go on there and try and you look at, say, buy a series of a show,
I'm looking at that now.
What is it? £2 an episode? So it's about 20.
So the Serpent. I don't know whether you've seen it. It's a new show on BBC One, which is actually the first 2 episodes of show, 8 episodes in total. It's on BBC One right now. I think it's on Sunday night. The Serpent. So you can buy the whole series right now on iTunes for £18.99. £19, or you can watch it on BBC iPlayer for free for the next 30 days.
And then if you use a little application that I will tell you about now called Get iPlayer, which you can download from the internet using a thing called Homebrew, you can just download that iPlayer in 720p at 50 frames per second onto a computer, completely DRM free. And you totally can't just watch that whenever you want and put it onto a Plex library, and you totally can't just put it on any computer you want, and then you totally can't modify your Apple TV 3rd generation to display that content. That's totally not possible.
Another example, the Doctor Who New Year's Day special. So that is still currently available on BBC iPlayer to watch for free because it is for 30 days after its show. iTunes, £4, well, £3.99 to buy. But then you buy it and you own it.
But for one episode, unless you're obsessed with that one episode, that's quite a lot of money. Considering when you go on Amazon or something and you want, say, the DVD of a show, you want the box set of, I think when did I buy my dad bought a box set of something. It was 1 Foot in the Grave or something. He bought the box set for about 12 quid. That's a great show.
I don't believe it. I do not believe it.
I think the box set for that was about 12 quid for all the series. Whereas on iTunes, it's about £12 per series.
Let's have a look. Let's see if it is on iTunes. Hang on.
I go on Amazon. Because that is a show that isn't on, I don't believe it's on any streaming services.
It's not on iTunes.
Oh. Okay, let's have a look. So if I go on Amazon now, I'm on Amazon UK. Yeah, the box set is £14.98. Oh god, the VHS tape. Oh my goodness, you can still buy it. £4.99. £4.99 for the box set on VHS.
Does anybody actually have a player to play on? Let's have a look what else we got here. Yeah, look, so His Dark Materials. That's another big hard-hitting show for the BBC just recently. Series 2, which was finished not so long ago. $16.99 to buy on iTunes. You could probably stream the entire season on a BBC iPlayer for free right now. if you're in the UK.
Yeah. So was that His Dark Materials? It's a
His
TV
Dark
show.
Materials, season 2, yeah.
How much is that on iTunes?
$16.99.
Okay, so the Blu-ray is $19.99, and how much is it per episode?
£2.49.
£2.49. So
yeah.
Okay, so Amazon sell each episode for £1.89 on Amazon Video. But they're selling.
Is that standard? Is that standard or high definition?
Oh, that's standard definition. That's a good point. High definition, $16.99 for the first series. Yeah, so same prices.
Yeah, as I say, because I'm looking at HD here. So,
yeah. If you think though, that's what if you get the middle subscription for Netflix, that's nearly 2 months for Netflix.
Yeah.
One show.
Yeah. But then His Dark Materials probably is non-Netflix, so.
No,
because it was a BBC HBO show, so it's on the BBC of the UK and HBO internationally.
So we're talking His Dark Materials. What is it on? I wonder if it's on any of the. Might be on BritBox.
Probably, yeah, it should be.
So that's what, £5 a month?
Yeah.
So it's 3 months of BritBox.
Well, actually, I'm not sure whether it is on BritBox because it's probably still on the iPlayer. Doesn't it go onto BritBox when it drops off the iPlayer?
So it's either on iPlayer, which is free, or it's on BritBox, which is £5 a month, which for 3 months is. So if you have it for 3 months, buying. So it's ridiculous.
It'll be. How much is a HBO subscription? Because it'll be on HBO internationally.
Can you get HBO in the UK?
I don't know.
I thought it was the US only.
Because you see a lot of these shows now, like The Serpent and like His Dark Materials, are done as in partnership with HBO. So the BBC does them in partnership with HBO, and I think it spreads out the cost, doesn't it? So like the BBC then has the rights to show them in the UK, and then HBO shows them internationally. Because His Dark Materials is actually quite big in the States, even though it's a British show.
So it is on HBO Max, but it's not. That's not available in our region. But if you were,
because it's BBC, yeah.
If you were to be sneaky and go on a VPN of your choice, which is loading.
Pretend you're in America, yeah.
Come to America. Here we go. I'm flying in the plane, and I've landed. I've refreshed the page, so let's have a look. How much is HBO Max? I have no idea. Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
Just thinking about it because my VPN is oddly rather slow. Okay, HBO Max is still thinking about it. Oh, here we go. Oh, that is absolutely useless.
No, HBO Max isn't available in the UK.
No.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it in the. I'm on a VPN to the United States, so it wants me to create an account. I'm not creating an account to find out. Okay, I will. Just type in random things.
You see, Sky has an exclusivity deal with HBO, meaning HBO TV shows are automatically broadcast on Sky channels, including Sky Atlantic, etc. That's why.
Will they be on Now TV?
Yes.
No.
It says here, the deal also means many HBO titles are available to watch on Now TV streaming service, which is owned by Sky.
Because it's on BBC.
It probably isn't. No, exactly. Yeah, because it's a partnership show between BBC and HBO. The BBC has the rights to show it in the UK, whereas HBO has the rights to show it internationally. So yeah, that would be excluded from that deal with HBO.
We got an iPlayer, which is free for. Okay, it is loading. So you can stream all episodes of that show, every episode, so season 1 and 2, for free on BBC iPlayer.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case.
Which means that why would you buy it on iTunes?
I bet you people have.
Yeah, probably.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah. This is a question I have. The BBC were doing a survey, and I was wondering, where do you, if you were to go to look for like a new show to watch, would you look? Would one of your first ports of call be the BBC iPlayer?
You see, that's a difficult one for me to answer, to be honest, because I don't actually watch a massive amount of TV. I put the news on in the morning when I'm getting ready for work, like BBC Breakfast or Good Morning Britain or whatever it's called on ITV, either one of those. I do tend to make a point of watching the news in the evening, but other than that, I'm not really a series kind of person anymore. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a bit like Apple TV Plus, to be honest. I've got a subscription because it comes as part of my Apple One bundle. And I had the free year. I had the free year obviously last year because I bought an iPhone, and I watched a couple of things on it. When you had them boring rainy days, I think I did the entire season of the morning show in one day, for example. But I'm not a big kind of TV buff. I'm not really into. I know some people can sit and watch entire seasons of things all in one go, and I'm not really, that kind of person. So I can't really answer that question, to be honest, because it's probably not something I would really do,
Right.
if you get what I mean.
Yeah. So do you have like Netflix and stuff, or do you not have anything?
I don't subscribe to anything like that.
Oh, right.
So apart from TV Plus.
Oh.
So to be honest, it probably would be if I was really, really bored and wanted to watch something on TV. There was nothing on live TV really that I wanted. It would probably be the case that I would probably go on to BBC iPlayer, to be honest, and have a look, flick through and see what's on it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Or TV Plus. Yeah, because there's quite a lot of stuff on TV Plus now. I mean, okay,
Yeah.
the catalog is nowhere near as big as Netflix or
No.
HBO and things like that, but it is getting bigger. I mean, it's over a year old now. Well, it's a year and a quarter old now. It's got to be better. So there is more stuff on there now. Probably not as much as they would have hoped because COVID has meant that some of their shows have been delayed. Production, and that's not just unique to Apple. That's happened to all sort of TV and whatnot movies around the world. But their catalogue is building slowly. And he went and got when you think about it, when TV Plus first launched just over a year ago, it launched with 6 shows, 6 series. That was it. And now there is quite, if you were new to TV Plus today, I think there'd be enough to keep you going on there for a few months, to be honest. Yeah. Unless you were somebody that does kind of sit glued to it all day, every day.
I'm quite picky though. I only watch things I like the sound of. I don't really like to sit and watch lots and lots and lots of shows.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not going to go through the entire catalogue of the streaming service I've just subscribed to.
Well, having said that, I mean, it would be relatively easy to do that on TV Plus because although there is quite a bit of content there, it's not massive and overwhelming. Whereas you go on to Netflix and you can go to search and you can carry on and you can carry on and you can carry on and you can carry on. Yeah. There's just so much stuff. Do you get what I mean? I think it would be quite easy to watch everything on TV Plus within a few months. To be fair, if you really wanted to. So.
I don't. If I go on TV, I'm on TV Plus now. I mean, what's on here? For example, as I was saying, I am rather picky. So I mean, what's this? It's Ted Lasso is an American football coach who moves to England when he's hired to manage the soccer team despite having no experience.
That has actually had very, very, very good reviews. It's not my sort of thing.
No, it's not my sort of thing.
But it is probably Apple TV Plus's best show so far in terms of the reviews and viewership.
I thought the morning show was pretty good.
Yes, but you got to remember that the morning show launched with it.
Yeah.
So there wasn't as many subscribers then.
Yeah.
So And don't get me wrong, the morning show had some good reviews. I mean, I watched the entire season, and I was quite impressed with it. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
And
right.
I am waiting season 2 to come along, and I will watch it when season 2 comes along. So, I watched C as well. I was quite impressed with that. I know there were some people that weren't overly keen, but I quite like C. I didn't really get on with For All Mankind. Now, to be honest, I really, 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 really wanted to like that show because it is kind of my cup of tea space. It's kind of stuff like that is kind of my sort of thing. I just didn't get on with it, and I think it's because it was like an alternative scenario because it's based on Russia basically winning the space race. What would have been if that had happened rather than the US? And because I knew it wasn't real, that wasn't actually what happened. It was based on an alternative truth, if you get what I mean. So it's based on kind of what happened, but an alternative version of it, and that's why I think I didn't get on with it.
Right.
Whereas if it had been completely fiction, I would probably have gone on with it fine. Or if it had been based on the true story but dramatized a bit, I would have quite liked it. But I think that's why I didn't really get on with that. So I've kind of stopped watching that halfway through the first season. And I probably won't watch the second season.
What do you think? I don't know whether you tried this show. A lot of people banging on about it in our sort of bubble. Defending Jacob. I tried the first episode, and I didn't really like it.
No, I've not seen that either. But that's had good reviews, to be fair to it. So, the other ones I quite liked. I haven't watched them all yet because some I watched recently. Was what's it called? It's got Ewan McGregor in it. What's it called? Long Way Up and that, isn't it? Yeah. So it's not. Don't forget, Apple TV Plus don't just do like drama stuff; they do reality as well, and like documentaries and things like that. So it's so they journey through the landscapes of South and Central America on the backs of prototype electric Harley Davidsons, and I quite enjoyed that because I do like documentary series. That's one thing that I do watch on TV. Is stuff like that. If David Attenborough brings out a new show like Planet Earth and things like that, I watch it.
You've died a bit.
Stuff like that. Hey?
You cut out when you said it got, and then you just died.
Oh, sorry. I said if like David Attenborough has something like a new series on TV, then I will watch it. I quite like stuff like that. That's more my cup of tea really than like drama and things like that. To be honest, because there's another one I want to watch. Where is it? Oh, here it is. I've kind of put this into my favourites for Sophie because next time that it's a rainy day and there's nothing to do, it's called The Earth at Night. Struggling to load now on my.
Is that on Apple TV Plus?
Yes, yeah.
I need to find some shows on it to justify us keeping.
So here we are. So it's called The Earth at Night in colour, and what they've done is they're using the cameras these days, so they're filming different things at night. So the episode 1, they're in Kenya, on the Mara grasslands. A lioness won't rest until she finds her young cubs she's lost. What they've done is it's all set at night, and a lot of this wildlife comes out at night, but they're using cameras that make it look like daylight, so it's really, really clear. And I watched episode 1, and it was really good. It was kind of I think there's about 10 episodes, 6 episodes there are. Sorry. So the next one I'm going to watch, obviously, there's the Tarsier Forest, and then there's Jaguar Jungle, Bear Woodlands, Wild Cities, and Cheetah Plains. So I quite enjoyed the first episode. It's kind of almost on the line of David Attenborough type thing, but at night with these cameras that make it look like daylight. So so you're not viewing it in the dark. You're viewing it as if it was day, but actually it's at night.
Oh wow!
So take a look at the trailer. It's quite good. Obviously, when you finish with me on here.
No, I'll give it an idea by showing them a really terrible. There you go. So that's sort of the thing we're talking about.
Yeah. So that looks like daytime, but actually that's pictured at night. Yeah. The other thing I watched on TV Plus actually, and it wasn't actually a TV Plus show originally, was the film Greyhound, Tom Hanks's Greyhound.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed that. Now, obviously, that wasn't commissioned by Apple TV Plus. It was originally a movie that was supposed to be in the movie theatres and cinemas. Got delayed twice because of the pandemic, and then I think Apple basically said, "Well, we'll pay you X amount of money for it to have it as an exclusive on our platform." And the company that made it were like, "Yeah, okay then." Because obviously it's very difficult to go to the cinema right now, isn't it? So
yeah.
So that's on there. But there is quite a lot of stuff now you see on TV Plus, and interestingly, they've got Snoopy on here now.
I was just gonna say about the film though. I would imagine if I was Tom Hanks, I'd be a little bit hacked off about that one, because when it gets to a theatre, when it gets to cinemas, I mean, you can go and see it from anywhere. Anyone can go and see it. If you own an Android phone, you can go to the cinema. Whereas if you've got Apple TV Plus, you're very unlikely to have a subscription to that without some kind of Apple device, and probably without some kind of very recent Apple device, because I don't think, I will go out on a limb and say, I don't think there's very many people subscribing to it, like paying the £5 a month.
Apparently, they did have a spike in new subscriptions because of that movie. So people specifically subscribed to it for that movie. Whether they just subscribed for the free, because you get a free period, don't you? 7-day free trial. And then cancelled as soon as they watched the movie, I don't know. Potentially. But don't forget, I mean, to be fair to Apple, they have kind of, got TV Plus on a lot of other platforms, and it's growing slowly.
Yeah,
so you can get it on. You can get it on most smart TVs now, for example. And on Roku.
And Amazon Fire Stick, but I'm not saying
Amazon Fire Stick.
I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying it's not available. But if I will say that I don't think there's very many people subscribing to it who aren't in the Apple ecosystem. I would imagine that the majority of subscribers are on the 3-year and a bit period, or on the Apple One. I don't think there's many people in that. And they looked at the £5 a month or the $5 a month, and they thought, I want Apple TV Plus. It's going to be my streaming service. I don't think there's many people.
You may well be right there. But what I would say is I don't think Apple ever intended it to be like that. I think it's in line with what Apple. It's a slow, what I would call a slow burner. So it's going to lose money, probably quite a substantial amount of money the first few years, and slowly but surely, as the catalogue builds up, and they will have a few hit shows, really big hit shows, and where non-Apple users will hear other people talking about it, and and they'll be like, "Oh, I want to watch that. How do I get onto that?" Well, actually, I haven't got an Apple device. Well, actually, you can do, blah 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 blah. And I think you'll find that as the catalog builds, that you will get more paying subscribers. And at the moment, you got all these people with their free year. Now, the free year has been extended. So the people that first signed up at the very beginning have got it until the end of February. Now, at the end of February, unless Apple change enough for another extension, all those people have got to make a decision about whether they start paying or not. The $4.99 a month, and I think the price is low enough at $4.99 a month for a lot of people to say, "Yeah, do you know what? I will pay for it," because it is a lot cheaper. I mean, Netflix are putting their prices up. I mean, it's going up. Is it $11.99? It's going up to, I think. They do have a lot more content, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of people will say, well, I think the value's there. And don't get me wrong, Apple TV Plus isn't going to stay at $4.99 forever. I can guarantee you that. They have priced it very competitively for a reason, and that is to get subscribers in. And once they build their subscriber numbers up to a certain level, they will then start slowly but surely increasing the price. You might find it going up to $5.49 and then $5.99. But that's exactly what Netflix did. I mean, Netflix used to be cheaper than $9.99.
Yeah.
So
Netflix still is. What is it? Oh, the Netflix is what? What's Netflix? It's $11.99. The thing with Netflix is, at least for us, is when we're looking at TV, I will either be watching live TV, maybe iPlayer or Channel 4, or it'll be Netflix. It's very rarely Apple TV Plus, and that makes the sort of $11.99 kind of justifiable because yes, it's quite expensive, but we're always looking at it. It's always something on Netflix, or someone will talk about something on Netflix and we want to watch it. Whereas with Apple TV Plus, it hasn't, like you're saying, it hasn't reached that point yet where I don't even think, for us at least, I don't think the $4.99 is justifiable, really. And I think the people who will continue subscribing might well just be those folks that have forgotten that they've even got it.
Probably. Comes out of their iTunes account every month, and along with everything else, and they don't really notice it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, just like I didn't know. Like my nan had Amazon Prime for 6 years before she realised that she had Amazon Prime.
Well, how did she get it in the first place?
Well, there's those things when you go on Amazon and you order. If you've got Prime, you won't get it. But if you I don't know if do you have Prime?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So if you haven't got Prime, when you order something on Amazon, it turns out there's a button that says free 1-day shipping with a free trial of Amazon Prime. You just tick it and it'll sign you straight up for the full
if you don't cancel by the end of the period. Yeah.
Once 6 years ago, she signed up, and then my dad was saying, should we, about 3 years after she did it, so probably about halfway through, I remember my dad having this conversation with us saying, should we give you access to our privacy? I said, oh no, our delivery is always coming.
Yeah.
She thought it was just standard service. No, didn't realise she was paying £79 a year for this delivery. Yeah. So I had to go and cancel that for her, but she did it twice. She's done that twice now.
Yeah. Yeah, see,
that's my customers for Apple TV Plus.
See, I'm subscribed to Amazon Prime, and I get it just for the deliveries. Free next day delivery. But actually, it does actually come with obviously Prime TV and all that sort of stuff. I very rarely use the Prime TV.
I think you go on it every now and then. When the subscription renews, you'll go. I don't know whether you do this, but we go on it and you'll have a look around every now and then. But I don't think there's ever anything that's worth watching on Amazon Prime.
I mean, the one thing I did used to, I really kind of wanted to watch on Amazon Prime was the Grand Tour. Obviously, the old Top Gear team on Amazon Prime. But to be honest, it just wasn't the same. So after about 3 or 4 episodes, I just switched off.
I quite like the Grand Tour.
No, it's not. It doesn't do it for me.
Did you see the latest special? No, you wouldn't have seen the latest special.
No, because I haven't been watching it. No, it doesn't
I quite like whatsoever. It's totally. No. They've changed the format now, so they don't do with the new one now. They don't do a studio at all. It's all just specials. They're doing like one special every however many months or so.
Do you reckon that's because it's easier to do with the COVID stuff?
No, they changed it before COVID was a thing.
Oh, did they? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, the last one was called Seaman.
Why does that not surprise me? But yeah, I mean, I used to love watching Top Gear with them three. I can't stand Top Gear now.
Oh, you mean Top Gear without Clarkson and that?
Yeah. I mean, say what you like about Jeremy Clarkson, and he says some stupid things and all this kind of stuff. but he just made that show. Well, the three of them did, to be honest. The three of them together did make that show, and the format worked. But I just find it doesn't work in the Grand Tour. It doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. They annoy me in the Grand Tour. It's quite weird, isn't it? So, but do you know what? I can't even remember. What was it that Clarkson did that got him kicked out of BBC?
He had a fracas with a producer over cold.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. But it was the producer's fault as well. Never mind. Right. Have we got any viewers?
No.
Oh.
We did. We had up to 8 at one point.
Oh. They must have got bored about us talking about TV.
You see, we haven't forayed into politics very much yet. So.
Well, I was trying to avoid that, to be honest.
I know. I thought we did a good job.
Because that's what we normally end up stuck on, talking about bloody politics and coronavirus. Although, to be fair, we have mentioned COVID a few times.
Yeah. I talk about something totally different. I sold a router today. I sold an Airport Extreme.
I was gonna say, not at airport. You were trying to flog me a few weeks ago. You messaged me and asked if I wanted one, and I was like, no. It's like donkey's years old. Yes, you did.
I don't think I messaged you.
You did.
It's
going back a bit. It's going back a few weeks now. So if you scroll back through messages, you're probably a while back.
Airport.
You either message. Well, you must have messaged me because we haven't spoken to the other.
No, I don't think I put it on Twitter. I didn't message you.
No, I think you did.
I don't remember messaging you about.
We were talking about something, and you said, "Oh, by the way, would you like?"
Did I?
I'm sure you did.
I really don't remember doing that. A few weeks ago, you say.
And I was like, that's donkey's years old now.
Back to Monday.
So how much did you get for it?
Well, when you take off the fees and the postage, £2.40.
Wow, that was really worth the sale.
Better than nothing.
Yeah, I might have even given you a £5.
That's what the bloke gave me, but I had to pay fees and I had to post it to Northern Ireland.
Hey, look who it is.
Ooh.
Hero, absolute hero.
Send them to me if you want.
Probably cost me more to set. Probably cost me more to post it to bloody London, doesn't it? Than the actual it's worth. Oh dearie me. So, should we talk about a certain somebody getting banned from Twitter?
That's politics, though.
Well, it can be and it can't be.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Why do you think, not just Twitter, but Facebook as well, Instagram, why do you think that suddenly now they have decided to ban him?
I think there's two reasons why it's now.
Because I'm going to say that if all this had happened 12 months ago, having said that, it wouldn't have because there wouldn't have been an election. But say it did, and he was still going to be in office for some time.
Yeah.
I don't think that they would have deleted him.
Well, that's what I was going to say, but you've just stolen my answers. One of my answers. You asked me the question and then went ahead and answered your own question for me.
Well, go on, carry on.
So I was just going to say my answers were that they know they can get away with it because he's leaving soon, and also they've got a valid excuse to actually do it now, like a good excuse.
Because I don't know, I'm kind of upset.
Yeah, I don't know whether I think it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Because I quite liked reading his tweets and laughing at them. What the hell are you talking about?
You can laugh at his
It was
folly.
good. It was good entertainment. But no, seriously. I don't know because I kind of sometimes have a view of that these people should be able to say these things and tweet these things, and then be held accountable for what they put on. Do you get what I mean?
I get what you mean, yeah.
So rather than just deleting and unblocking them, I mean, give them warnings. You know, they've been putting enough stuff underneath, about when you keep saying that the election was fraud and that, and they, this is disputed by the official, blah, 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 blah. Put that sort of stuff on and let other people point out to him what he's saying wrong. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because enough people obviously do.
But a lot of people believe him.
Yeah, but is that going to change because Twitter has blocked him?
All it'll do is just not let them communicate using the standard forms.
Yeah, and then that pushes it all underground into stuff that isn't in the general public eye, which actually could be worse.
Yeah, probably lead to more of it. I mean, where would it go? I'm interested. Will it go to like one of these dodgy web forums from the 90s, that type of thing?
Well, I don't know, but I can guarantee you, he's still going to have his followers, and he's still going to be able to get. He's still going to want to get his 2 pennies worth in somewhere along the line, and because that's the kind of person he is. So this is what worries me: is it's got to go kind of underground type speak. Not in the main public view, and that's where the worrying thing has come along. Because if these arguments aren't had in plain view of the public, then you don't really know what's going on.
So there's no one to point out he's wrong, like you're saying.
Well, exactly, yeah, because it's going to be it's going to be all people that agree with him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like some of his policies I kind of agree with, but the way he went about stuff was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And a lot of his policies I didn't agree with. I mean, I suppose you could say that about any politician, really. To a degree.
Like to think that I don't know about you, but I would imagine we both were sort of fairly big supporters of Boris back last year. I don't think I would do that again.
You see, I've never been a big opponent of Boris, to be honest. Well, yeah, because I'm a conservative, so therefore
I don't think I would vote for him.
But you see, I think Theresa May would have done a much better job.
Yeah.
Now in the coronavirus problem that we're facing.
But she wouldn't have got
that Boris would have done. Yeah, but you say that, and again, but the deal that Boris has got isn't all that different to the deal that she was going for, realistically speaking. When you actually look at it, it's not a massive amount different. So it's weird, isn't it? Do you get what I mean? How things turn out.
And the border down the Irish Sea as well. That's quite disappointing to see.
Yeah, which she didn't want to do. That's the main difference. Because that was kind of what was offered to her in one of the first places. And that is kind of disappointing because basically Northern Ireland is still in the EU.
Yes,
but isn't.
What is interesting, though,
if you understand that.
I do. What is interesting, well, it's in the customs union and the single market, but there is an important thing you need to remember. In 3 years' time, whatever, I forgot what the Northern Ireland Parliament is called, but whatever it's called, that gets to vote on that one, yeah. I thought I was Scotland for a moment, but no, Scotland is Holyrood.
Holyrood.
Scotland's Holyrood, yes. Anyway, Scotland will get to vote in 3 years whether or not it wants to stay part of that or join the UK in its Brexit, full Brexit.
But then the problem with that is then you have a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, which is something that everybody wants to avoid because that has a high possibility of bringing back the Northern Ireland troubles again.
Yeah.
So this is the sticking point. The Irish question rears its ugly head all over again. Yeah, interesting. But then I suppose if the people of Northern Ireland vote for that, then it's democratic, isn't it? That's democracy.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that have to live there, not us.
Have you ever been to Northern Ireland?
I have not. No, I've been to Ireland, but never Northern Ireland. Weirdly. Yeah, been to Ireland. Been to Dublin. Been to Dublin. Couple of times.
One of the places I think I should go after this sort of lockdown is over because the flights are very cheap to go there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got a flight from Birmingham to Dublin like 40 quid, I think it was, return.
Yeah, not very.
Almost cost me more to get from Shrewsbury to Birmingham on the train. Yeah.
It's actually a good point you make there because when you look at the trains versus the planes in this country, I mean, I know we say, oh, the Americans always fly everywhere. But if you go on the train from London to Edinburgh versus the plane from London to Edinburgh from this house, because you can actually pretty much walk to the airport, it actually works out at less money to fly to Edinburgh than it does to get the train.
Well, I suppose it depends, doesn't it, really? Because people say this, and when you look at comparison, when people compare tickets and stuff, it isn't a true reflection. Because actually, you could probably get a relatively cheap return ticket from London to Edinburgh. I mean, I wouldn't talk about now because obviously we're in COVID times, and I think they've taken all the cheap tickets off to stop people travelling because they don't want people making non-essential journeys. But let's rewind back to say 2018, for example, before COVID, long before COVID. For example, from Shrewsbury to I'm going to use Shrewsbury to London for example. Now, if I just rocked up at the station one morning and asked for a return ticket to London, I would probably be to pay over £100. But if I booked in advance, which when you book in a flight, 9 times out of 10, that's how people book flights. People don't tend to just rock up at the airport and hop on a plane. It doesn't. 9 times out of 10 it will. That I could get a return to London from Shrewsbury on the exact same trains for like 30 quid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference because when you see, when you go into like these newspapers and they compare the price of flying in comparison to rail, so they'll go, oh, you can fly from London to Edinburgh for return £40, but on the train it costs over 300. Well, actually, if you get an advanced ticket, you can actually get return from London to Scotland for around about 50 quid. If you book in advance.
This is the thing where this is where I was going to raise my point. The reason I brought up London to Edinburgh is my mum used to make that journey pretty much every 6 to 7 weeks on either the train or the plane. And once you factor in the train fares to get to, say, London Euston or it's King's Cross actually, the terminus station to go up to Scotland, and once you factor in the location not being right and things like that, it pretty much 9 times out of 10 it would work out cheaper to go on the plane.
Fair enough.
Because the plane was about, I think it was £85 or £90 return.
Yeah.
But because we can walk to the airport, that wipes out the sort of £6 return that you're looking at on the Oyster card. And because Edinburgh Airport was in a more convenient location, it made you only had to pay the bus fare from Edinburgh Airport to where she needed to go. And it worked out at the end of the day to be less to do it on the plane. And also quicker.
Yeah, I get your point. But I don't always think it's quite as cheap. It's like people talk about rail fares in the UK being some of the most expensive in Europe. For walk-on fares, we are, but actually for advanced purchase fares, we're one of the cheapest.
The other thing about our rail that's interesting is I would say because of COVID, if it wasn't for COVID, this would probably be major headline news and everyone would know about this. But I didn't know about this, and you probably do know about this because you seem to take an interest in rail fares. But I actually found out the other day, it was actually a few weeks ago, that actually what happened a few months ago was that the government have officially announced the end of rail franchising in the UK. So for our two viewers who may or may not know what rail franchising means, it's where the government, in the end of the day, after a lot of long deliberations and privatisation and then renationalisation of tracks, the government would take a region of the country, say the West Midlands, or they would take an intercity line like the East Coast Main Line, and they would say that they would give a company a contract for say 10 years, and they would operate that as a franchise and give them like timetabling controls, and they would customer service and the running of the trains would be their responsibility. The track would not be their responsibility, and the rolling stock would have to be leased from a rolling stock company. It's a very complicated system. But yes, and around I think it's like September, October, they've announced the end of rail franchising. I didn't know about it, but what they're bringing in is a new system called direct management, something like direct management contract. So that would be like London. Like if you take London Overground, the way that that's run is TfL actually contract that out to. I think they contract it out to Amy, which is a contractor. London Overground set the timetable and ticket fares and all of that stuff. Amy, or whatever the contractor is called, their responsibility is just run the trains to that contracting service, and to pay the government, to pay the transport for London back. If there's any problems, if they aren't able to do it, they get fined money in the contract. And that will be how the UK's rail network will run eventually, once all these franchises have been properly paid.
There's two things here. Number one, they were forced to do it by the COVID situation.
No, this is a permanent thing.
So, just listen to what I'm about to say. Number one, they were forced to do it by the COVID situation. So last March, when COVID hit and we went into lockdown, and obviously the number of rail journeys dropped by like 95%. The rail companies were basically like, yeah, we need to hand back the keys because we're losing money hand over fist. And don't forget, most rail journeys, most rail franchises in the UK, apart from a couple of the intercity ones, and I think South West Trains was the other one, actually received a subsidy from the government. Rather than because they weren't wholly profitable. I think Intercity West Coast, Intercity East Coast were wholly profitable, so they paid money to the government for the privilege of running that franchise because they were profitable. So what they did is the government did a 6-month thing, so they put everything on hold for 6 months, and basically they took over whilst these companies would carry on running the service, but all farebox fares and all risk the government took on for a 6-month period, and basically these companies got paid a set fee just to carry like a management
2%
to run the railways for 6 months, and obviously that had to be reviewed in the autumn. Now there was a couple of franchises in the country already, Transport for Wales being one of them, and I think London Overground being the other. And that we're already done.
Is not to run like this.
Transport for Wales is a direct contract.
It's not
set by the government. It's not a franchise. Believe you me, it is not a franchise. It's a direct contract, and it is Keolis Amy run it under direct contract from Transport for Wales, which is a subsidiary of the Welsh government.
I thought Transport for Wales was some method they used to bid on the franchise because I thought the only two direct operated
Right.
these were just were Merseyside Rail in
Mersey
wherever,
Rail, yeah,
and
and London
there's
Overground.
Overground, and the third one's actually the Docklands Light Railway. I didn't
Oh, that's
think
kind of different.
I didn't think
Transport for,
Transport for Wales.
Transport for, Transport for Wales was the first. It was basically let by the Welsh Assembly government for 15 years to Keolis Amy onto contract from Transport for Wales, which is a direct subsidiary of the Welsh government.
No, I was right. I maintain I was right. I've just looked it up. Transport for Wales runs the Wales and Borders franchise, and it was awarded the contract for that. It was awarded the franchise.
Yeah, but who is Transport Wales?
It's a company
it's a subsidiary of the Welsh Assembly government who contract out the running by direct contract to Keolis Amy.
Well, here it says that it's owned by Keolis and Amy.
No, it's not. Transport for Wales is a government company, Welsh Assembly government company, and they got the contract to Keolis Amy to run the service.
Right.
And there's something changed recently, actually. They've changed the contract recently. I can't remember exactly how it went, but I think Transport for Wales is going to take over the day-to-day running. I think it's from March this year from Keolis Amy, and Keolis Amy will only be looking at the infrastructure part because they've actually taken on the Valley Lines network around Cardiff from Network Rail because they're going to turn it into a light rail network. That's over the next 5 years, a bit like Docklands Light Railway to a degree, or the Croydon Tram network. So, anyway,
yeah, it was an operator of last resort.
When you look at these though, so obviously back in sort of October
I still maintain I was right. By the way, I'm still maintaining I was right because it says it was brought under public control as an OLR, operator of last resort, which is a method. That is a method dictated in the franchising system, which is totally different from a direct award contract, which is pretty much unrelated to the franchising system.
But anyway.
Yes, the private company was awarded. It was yes, you were okay.
Yeah, but you're looking at TFWrail.wales, aren't you? That's
yeah.
Because if you go to TRC,
so
TRC.com, that is the Welsh government site for Transport for Wales, and that is a direct government subsidised company, not-for-profit company the Welsh government set up. Yeah. And they awarded that contract to Transport for Wales Rail, which is a Keolis Amy company.
No, so here's the thing. So I've done a bit more digging onto another website called Intelligent Transport, and they wrote this article in November this year, so I presume it's fairly up to date. So it turns out I think we were both sort of right. So until February 2021, so until February.
But yeah, it changes this soon.
Yes. Yeah. Keolis and Amy is operating the franchise.
It's not a franchise. Yeah, it's not a franchise though. I think this is where it's not a franchise.
It is
direct. It's a direct award.
It will be direct award after February 2021, when it will be brought into Welsh government control. But at the moment, it's still a franchise.
It already was.
No, it's definite because
it doesn't really make much difference, to be honest, because basically it's the same thing.
But I'm insistent that I am definitely correct.
It's basically the same thing because even under franchises, it's a change in name only, because all these direct awards are basically franchises. The only difference is these companies are now paid a set fee per month or per year or whatever it is to run the service under contract, as opposed to before when they were a franchise, they could cream off all the profits. This is the only difference. At the end of the day, the government, whether it's under the franchise system or under the direct award system, still basically still picks up all of the tab of any losses that are made.
Okay, right. Just to finish off, because I am right, I will fight to the end of this stream to prove it. A document from the House of Commons, published in September 2020, reads, when I go to the Wales section, Transport for Wales was established in 2015 as a Welsh government-owned company. Its rail unit operates the Welsh and Borders franchise.
Yes, but it was never a franchise.
Well, why does it say it's a franchise?
Because it never was.
But why does it say it's a franchise?
Because in 2015 it was operated by Arriva Trains Wales. It wasn't until 2018 that was it 2018, 2019, 20? No, it was 20. Yeah, it was 2018 that Transport for Wales Rail took over, which was Keolis Amy. But it was never awarded as a franchise. It was always a direct award for a period of 15 years.
No, it was the franchise was awarded. Yeah, it's running as a franchise until February 2021.
Well, that's only recently been changed because they've changed contracts now. Because originally it was 15 years. Because I think as from February, if I remember correctly, Keolis Amy are no longer have anything to do with the running of the railway per se in Wales, but they will still be responsible for delivering the Cardiff Metro project, the infrastructure part of that project, which is the Valley Lines network, turning it into a light rail system. A mixed heavy rail, light rail system in and around Cardiff. It's going to be a mixed system. It's going to be very unique for the UK, apparently. There isn't that sort of thing yet. Because certain routes is going to be heavy rail trains running on, and other routes is going to be light rail, but there's going to be certain sections where both run, apparently. So, yeah. But anyway, the differences are very small. I mean, there's obviously contractual differences, and the government might turn around and say, oh, yeah, this is a big difference. We're changing to blah, 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 blah. But realistically, they're still going to be contracting out private companies to run the rail network and paying them a fee to run them. Under conditions, because even under the franchise agreements, they were told, right, under this agreement, you must agree to buy X amount of trains or lease X amount of trains from these leasing companies. You must agree to run these services. They must have this frequency, this capacity, blah, 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 blah. And it's pretty much the same, but just under a different name, isn't it?
Well, no, actually, I would disagree with that as well.
Why?
I would say that, well, if you look at a franchise agreement, it's far less in-depth than a direct award. A direct award is just saying, run the services that I say at the times that I say.
Well, that's pretty much the franchise.
That I say, for as long as I say, and you have fines if you don't meet that. Whereas under a franchise, that would be a direct award. Whereas under a franchise, what you've got is the train operating companies do have some say in what the.
To a degree. So they have
fares. You've got, say, C2C is one of the operators you've got in the UK, and their fares actually haven't increased. The reason I bring them up is their fares actually are one of the only ones that, as of 2018, their fares haven't increased at a rate higher than inflation. It's one of the only operating companies that haven't.
I think the main difference is about freedom to do other things to a degree. So for even on a franchise, they have a minimum service requirement or minimum service level agreement. So they are told by the government, you must run these services between these stations. You've got to give at least this amount of capacity. You've got to, lease these trains, etc., etc., blah 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 blah. The first train of the day must be by at least this time, and the last train of the day must be by this time. This is the frequency that you need to run, blah 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 blah. However, you can go above and beyond that, and where you see there's a business case to run more trains or whatever, if you choose to do that at your own risk, in conjunction with Network Rail to fit them in, you can do that. Whereas these direct awards, that part of it isn't there. But it's still kind of, you must run these trains at these times between these stations, with the first train being no later than this, and the last train being no earlier than, do you know what I mean? And all that sort of stuff. This is the rolling stock that you will have. And you'll get this fee paid to you every month, performance permitting, for running the network, and we take on all the risk. It's basically what the government is doing. That's a slightly different to the franchise, because under the franchises agreement, private companies take on the risk to a certain degree, but actually, realistically, as has been shown in the past, actually the government take on the final risk.
What I'm interested to know is, because this is the sort of thing I'm interested in, is what will these trains be branded as? Because when you've got, when we look at the other direct,
well, as far as I'm,
like Railway or the London Overground, they're branded as London Overground. They're not branded as London Overground operated by Kelios Ami. So what will they be?
Well, look at. Well, I suppose you get a bit of a mix mash, I think, because if you look at Wales, for example, all of their trains, even now, are branded as Transport for Wales.
Franchise.
Okay.
Which is a franchise.
But they're all branded as Transport for Wales. But actually, the company that runs them is Kelios Ami.
Yes.
Kelios Ami is not mentioned anywhere on any of the branding, anywhere. Not even on the website. Well, actually, it is on the website. If you go to the very bottom of the website, very bottom page in small print, it says Transport for Wales Rail is a subsidiary of Kelios Ami. But it's all branded as Transport for Wales, which is actually the brand for Transport for Wales, which is a government-owned, not-for-profit company, which is responsible for all the transport in Wales, not just trains, but buses and things like that as well. But, for example, Avanti West Coast has now got a direct award, or will have coming soon, to run the West Coast Main Line. It was a franchise. Obviously, it's been changed recently in the autumn. I think it's on a short contract for 6 months to get them all into line or something. It goes, and then they've still got another 7 years to run then under direct award from the government. They are still going to be known as Avanti West Coast. Apparently, it's not going to be called. It's not going to be called West Coast Trains. It's going to be carried on as Avanti West Coast.
You missed the opportunity. They could have brought back all of the great old brand names they had. They could have brought back like Network Southeast and Intercity.
Well, they brought back Great Western.
Yeah, but that's before.
PWR?
They didn't bring back any BR stuff. They only brought back.
You've got.
I mean, they brought back Great Western. They brought back LNER.
For example, LNER.
Yes.
That's been operated by the government under direct award now for, it's going to be almost 3 years now, if not more, since Virgin handed in the keys. Now Virgin, we called it LNER, and it's stayed as LNER even under direct government control, and no private company at the moment is operating that. Is operated directly by the government right now. I mean, obviously, going forward, that is probably going to be contracted out to a private company to run it under a direct award at some point, because that's the way they're going. But currently, it is actually operated by East Coast Trains, which is a subsidiary of the Department of Transport. But it's still called and branded LNER. They haven't changed the branding on it, and they've had 3 years to change the branding on it because Virgin threw the keys out 3 years ago. They couldn't make a profit out of it.
Virgin never called it LNER.
They did.
No, they didn't. When I remember this, I remember the change because Virgin. I remember when Virgin were on that line, they called it Virgin Trains West Coast,
East Coast,
and whatever one East Coast. Then they called it Virgin Trains East Coast. Now I distinctly remember Philip Hammond in 2017 coming out and saying we're resurrecting one of the old Great British train brands when the operator of last resort kicks in, and we'll be calling it LNER.
I'm pretty sure Virgin changed that because they wanted to drop their name, because actually the company wasn't really that much Virgin. It was about 95% Stagecoach. I think it was 90% Stagecoach, 10% Virgin. But then it was the same with the West Coast, because Stagecoach actually owned the 51%, I think it was. Virgin only owned 49%, even on the West Coast. They just used the Virgin brand.
Yeah, because they've extended that contract. So LNER's contract from the government, so to be operated by the government, has been extended until 2025. And I don't know. I'm not so certain as you.
I suppose that could be changed quite easily, though, because it is a contract by the government to the government. So I suppose they're just giving themselves time, because obviously with all the COVID and crap going on at the minute, it just buys them time. That will get let out as a direct award to a private company at some point.
But the thing with it is that it actually is quite good.
I mean, the problem is people. Yeah, it is.
When it was run as East Coast Rail, when it was run as East Coast,
to be honest,
nationalised it.
To be honest,
yeah,
it was. I mean, I don't know whether you can remember this far back, but the best operator ever to run the East Coast Main Line was Sea Containers, and that was when it was called GNER.
I do remember GNER. I have one memory of it.
Yeah, and that was when it was run at its best. And then Sea Containers got bought out by somebody else. I can't remember who it was now, but anyway, who subsequently went bust, which was the first time it got handed back. I can't remember who it was. Sea Containers got bought out by.
Went to National Express anyway.
That was it. I think National Express bought it. Bought the franchise of Sea Containers.
Right. And then they went bust, and then
it went bust because they got called National Express East Coast or something like that. And they went bust and couldn't make the money. See, I don't understand, but then the East Coast Main Line is a profitable line.
Yeah.
The problem is the government was asking too much, because the East Coast Main Line, there's only ever been 3 franchises that have ever paid money to the government, and that is East Coast, Southwest, and West Coast. The East Coast being the most profitable, weirdly.
Yeah.
You think it would be the West Coast, because they actually have multiple times more passengers, much busier, certainly in bigger cities, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, than the East Coast, run more services. But I think the West Coast Main Line, because of the upgrade that it had in the late 1990s, early 2000s, the track access fees for the West Coast Main Line, which is the money that they pay with Network Rail, or Rail Track as it was then, and Network Rail, are a lot higher per train on the West Coast Main Line than they are on the East Coast Main Line, which is why the East Coast Main Line made a lot more money in terms of profit, even though the revenue was a lot lower. So there's only them 3 companies that ever made money, ever paid money, what they called premium payments to the government. So they didn't receive. So the railways overall in the UK are subsidised by the government to a tune of about £8 billion a year. Now, back in the early days of rail franchising, the money was paid directly to the train operating companies. They would then pay what they call track access charges to Rail Track to run to their trains, to allow their trains to run on the network, and that's how Rail Track made its money. When Rail Track went bust back in the early 2000s and got replaced with a publicly owned direct government subsidiary called Network Rail, they changed some of the ruling, the way that it worked. So some of the money from the government in terms of subsidy went direct to Network Rail, and the rail operators, the train operating companies, got a smaller amount, but actually their track access charges got cut back a lot, so they didn't pay as much as track access charges. So they changed it. It was a bit more fragmented, actually, because It was like, well, we're going to pay a portion of that money directly to Network Rail, so you get a smaller proportion, but your track access charges are going to be lower, but you still got to pay some track access charge. It was a bit strange. But anyway, go back to East Coast. Twice the government set out a franchise for the East Coast. Once it was with National Express, and the second one was with Virgin Trains, Stagecoach Virgin. And we'll talk about the latter one because it's more recent history. They had to pay, so Virgin Trains East Coast, or Stagecoach Virgin, whatever you want to call them, had to pay a premium payment to the government. Over, I think it was a 7-year franchise they were awarded, or I think an 8-year franchise they were awarded. Over that 8 years, they'd have to pay £2 billion to the government for the privilege of running the East Coast franchise. And that would slowly build up over the 8 years. So, it would, each year it would get slightly bigger, but the total amount would be £2 billion over the 8 years. And that was basically too much to ask because the line was profitable, but they went bust because they couldn't pay that money. There wasn't enough passengers using the network, even though their passenger numbers were growing year on year. They would have to, I think they had to average, they reckoned to pull a profit, to be able to pay that money and pull a profit, they would have to increase passenger numbers by 15% every year, year after year after year after year. That's a big number to increase your passengers. Obviously, had they had all these new trains coming on stream, and they were going to run more services, like 3 times an hour to Leeds was planned, and twice an hour to Edinburgh instead of once an hour, and all these sort of, I think it was going to go from 6 departures from King's Cross an hour to like 10 or something in total. I think that's still the plan under LNER. I think they've kept to that plan. It's just it's go directly controlled by the government. Now, people might turn around and say now, oh, well, look at LNER. They're turning a profit. It's run by the government. They're turning a profit and handing all this money back to the government. But it isn't as much as was promised by Virgin Trains East Coast. It's always been a profitable line. It probably always will be a profitable line. Obviously, probably not at this moment in time with hardly any passengers travelling, but even after COVID times. But the money that the government was asking from that company was too much. Now, that's not just the government's fault, it's also the company's fault because they took on that contract. And some people would say, well, you knew what you were agreeing to, so therefore, tough shit.
That's why.
But at the end of the day, they were running a public service. So if a company goes bust, who picks up the tab? Running a public service, who picks up the tab? Now, if Tesco's goes bust, the shop's shut. Everybody else is finding somewhere else to shop. There's other options. If you want to get a train between London and Leeds, the only option is LNER. It goes bust, or Virgin Trains East Coast as it was then. It goes bust. There's no other option. It's a public service. The government has got to take over.
And you raise a very interesting point here. And this is where I have some issues with the general idea of the privatisation of rail. Is if we actually look at the amount that we're subsidising, when we had British Rail versus now, British Rail was subsidised significantly less overall than the current rail network is, even after you've adjusted for inflation. But the other issue is when you bring up this public service thing, and when you look at the arguments for privatisation when it happened, people were talking of increased competition. But I don't see, and it's pretty much played out like this, how can you compete on one rail line? It's not happening. Few cases. There have been very small cases, admittedly, where multiple rail operating companies have competed on the same franchise, but it's extremely rare. And if you want the 743 from Brighton to London, you're not going to have the choice of whether you want to take that on a southern train or a southwestern rail train. You're going to have to take it on whoever is delivering that service. There is no competition on rail.
Yeah, well, no. But then at the end of the day, whose fault was that? It was the way it was set up by the government.
It's just a fact.
You could have competition if the system was set up as competition. The only problem is the only competition that you would have would be on the profitable routes because people aren't going to compete on loss-making routes, are they? That's the problem.
No. What I meant by the method that rail operates, it's impossible to have.
I mean, I wouldn't say that, to be honest, because I would say you could quite on some routes, 2 operators do run already on some routes.
Yeah.
But the problem is the way the system is set up. Is that you can't really have that much competition, because most walk-on fares you can use any operator on a set route. Now, obviously, if you buy fares in advance, advanced ticket fares. Now, normally it stipulates you can only use this train or this, for example, there is between Birmingham and London, for example, there is a super off-peak fare, which is a walk-on fare, but it's only valid on London North Western, which is the slower trains between Birmingham and London. And it's not valid on the Bounty West Coast. But then if you pay the extra tenner and you just get an off-peak saver fare, you can use either. And then you've also got Chiltern Railway's option as well, which is slightly slower, which goes into Marylebone. But there's a bit of competition between the West Coast and the Chiltern Railway line there. But the system basically isn't set up for competition, because how are the fares regulated? Most fares are regulated by the government. Apart from the off-peak cheap fares, most of them are regulated by the government. All walk-on fares, all season tickets are all regulated by the government. They're set by the government.
Yeah.
So there is little or no competition. But you could, if you let the system run, you could actually introduce competition. And the argument would be is you put 2 operators on, at least minimum 2 operators on each route, and you give them equal slots for trains. So, for example, there's 3 trains an hour at the moment that run between London Euston and Manchester Piccadilly every hour, 3 express trains. All of them are run by Avanti West Coast. Well, what if you had 3 different operators that run each one? So, one company had the one that left London at o'clock. One company had the slot that was 20 past the hour. One company had the slot that was at 22 the hour. So they all roughly take the same length of time to get from London to Manchester. They serve the same route. However, they compete for customers by the service that they operate, as in the on the train experience and the service, etc., and the cost. That could well work. The problem that you get is on, say, for example, the Heart of Wales line between Shrewsbury and Swansea. There's 4 trains a day in each direction. Passenger numbers are low. There's going to be it's heavily subsidised because there's no way in earth it is going to make a profit. So no private company is going to want to take that on to compete with anybody else. It's always going to require a subsidy, and that's the problem with the rail network. But I think there could be an argument really where the profitable lines are almost sold off to a degree to different companies, to compete with each other to make a profit, and a percentage of that money goes back to the government and the government looks after the loss, through direct award, looks after the loss-making routes that are more public service orientated, but are subsidised by the profits, or a percentage of the profits from the profitable routes, which is kind of how BR worked to a certain degree, because Intercity made a profit, but regional railways made a loss.
Yeah.
And the profit from Intercity used to transfer across to regional railways to keep them running back in the early 90s.
But the problem we've got is that when we look at the current system, it's more. So there's a few issues I see with your argument. So first of all, when you talk about more competition in railways, if you take a commuter service, a decent commuter service, say let's say the one from Shrewsbury to Birmingham, and you need to get to work for say 9 a.m., there's only going to be 1 or potentially 2 at the very most reasonable route trains that you could take at that time. And when you've narrowed it down to only 1 or 2 train times you can actually get, say from London to Brighton, I think there's 1 train every half an hour. So if you're getting into London for 9, there's going to be 2 services.
London to Brighton, I think it's every 5 minutes, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't think that's
especially in peak times. Might be a bit less during the daytime. I think in the morning and evening peaks, it's pretty much every 5 minutes. It's one of the busiest commuter routes in the country.
Didn't think it was every 5 minutes.
I think it is during the
Well,
because most of those go through to Bedford. They go like Brighton to Bedford route. It's what they call the Thames Link, isn't it? Goes through Farringdon and up there, and King's Cross, St Pancras.
Yeah.
The new bit. I'm pretty sure they're roughly in the peak times every sort of 5 minutes. It might be every 15 minutes during the daytime, in the middle of the day, evening kind of thing. But I think at the peak times it's pretty much every 5 minutes.
I thought it was a lot less frequent than that.
So no, it's pretty
The
frequent.
point does still stand in a lot of areas that there won't be very many options of trains that you can get. And when you've got that problem, then there is no competition. You're going to take whatever one the time.
But then you're probably looking but in those areas,
with privatisation is with public subsidies. When you take out what public subsidies we're actually giving them, it's considerably more expensive to run now than it was in the 90s with the subsidies we're giving. So the other argument for privatisation was efficiency, and it's anything but efficient. And then the third problem with privatisation, possibly the biggest one, is that no one really knows who's accountable for your problems, because there's several different people operating this railway. And this is one of the things I'm not sure whether direct award will actually, maybe it might even solve this problem. Because you've got the government, who ultimately are responsible for the railways and making them run properly. You've got your train operating company, which is the person you would immediately think to complain to. You've got Network Rail, which are the people who might be held up doing track repairs. You've also got the leasing company for the rolling stock, if the rolling stock has failed.
From a passenger point of view, Josh, though, from a passenger point of view, your point of call is your train operator.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the issue is, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's train or whatever else. Your point of call for recompense is the train operating company. Now, if it was a signal failure that caused your journey to be delayed, you would claim compensation for that delayed journey from your train operating company, and they would get compensation from Network Rail. And that's how it works. So it's not a case that you have to work out, oh, well, hang on a minute, I'm going to speak to Network Rail because of this, because it was their problem. It's not like the train operating company is going to turn around and go to you and go, oh, yeah, you're on this delayed train by 30 minutes. Yeah, you are entitled to compensation, but you're going to have to contact Network Rail for that because it was their delay. That's not how it works. The train operating company still has to deal with your complaint, give you your recompense, and then they claim that back off Network Rail. Because actually, I think how it's set up these days is they get automatically paid from Network Rail anyway for delays that are course of their services. So they've already had the money before you get it, if you get what I mean.
I do, but when it comes to it, when you're looking at, say, who do you support in your... That is actually a good point. I'm not sure.
Because these people that, because I know somebody that works for Network Rail, and they have people that, so for example, in the signal boxes or the signalling centres, I mean, in Shrewsbury we have signal boxes because we still got the old ancient bloody semaphore signals, but obviously you go to like the West Coast Main Line, there's big signalling centres that overlook the whole thing, and it's all on a computer. If there's any delays, the signaller has to put different codes on the delays so that they can be attributed to what the delay was. So they know exactly straight away: is it a Network Rail issue? Is it an act of God, for example? Is it a train operating company's fault? And all these different. Apparently, there's about 50 odd different reasons that they can put down. I mean, sometimes it's us passengers. Actually, it's us passengers that cause the majority of delays. The majority of the delays are actually in the country are caused by us passengers of some sort of degree or another, apparently. And the problem is a 1 minute delay to one train or 2 minute delay to one train can quickly escalate because the network is so crowded at certain pinch points around the country. That can quickly escalate and have knock-on effects for other trains that push. Before you know it, other services are then 10 minutes delayed or 20 minutes delayed and things like that because there are certain pinch points on the network that are just so crowded. Especially down in London in the southeast way, where you've got trains passing certain sections every minute or so. But yeah, they have people that basically attribute delays and what that was caused, so that they can pinpoint who pays for it, basically. But from a customer point of view, your point of call is where you bought your ticket from, basically. Because if you buy your ticket, for example, on thetrainline.com and your train is delayed, I think it's 30 minutes. I think after 30 minutes you're entitled to a percentage of your fare back, and it increases depending on what the delay is. I think if you're delayed over an hour, you can have all your fare back. I think it is. But you still have to go through, even if your train journey was with Avanti West Coast, for example. If you bought your ticket through the train line, you'd have to go through the train line because they're the ones that sold it to you. But obviously, they would claim the money back from Avanti West Coast. But then, if it was a signalling issue, they would claim that money back from. Do you get what I mean? It all sort of works through the system like that. But then, I suppose most people probably didn't claim because. I'm not being funny. I think they've bought it. There's a new thing that Transport for Wales have bought in. It's called Delay Repay 15, and you can get refunded a portion of your ticket if your train is delayed by 15 or more minutes. I think it's 15, 30, and 60. If it's 60, you get like all your money back for that portion of the journey. So if it's a return, you get half back of your total ticket that you stay. But to be honest, if my train was delayed by 15 minutes, I probably wouldn't bother claiming. If it was an hour, I'd be fuming, and I would. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
15 minutes, I probably think, oh, it's not worth the hassle. 15 minutes. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that would, but I wouldn't. I don't know about you. What do you do?
What would I do?
Would you claim for a 15-minute delay?
Depends how.
I don't think I would.
I don't think I'd even think about claiming because I'd be so expecting for a train to be delayed, especially in this country. I would really expect a delay of 15 minutes. I mean, you've got certain rules. Never ride a train on a Sunday, for example.
So I don't know. I think for an hour, if it was delayed by like an hour or something, I would definitely claim. I have claimed actually. I mean, obviously, I've got a season ticket between Shrewsbury and Birmingham, although I'm not using it at the moment. And every quarter we get, they work out basically based on average the delays on the route, and we get a portion of that money back every quarter, depending on that. But I have claimed on one other journey, but a couple of years ago I went to Manchester. I had a day return to Manchester. It was like 25 quid or something. And there was somebody threw themselves in front of a train between Crewe and Manchester. So obviously we got to Crewe and pulled into the platform, and it was just kind of like sat there. Because you're only supposed to be like 2 minutes in Crewe. It's kind of like drop off, people put back on, and then they put an announcement over the tannoy thing saying that we were to get off the train because there'd been an incident between Crewe and Manchester, and that this train would be terminating at Crewe and then going back down to Cardiff, because that's the one that comes from Shrewsbury to Manchester, go from Cardiff to Manchester. And we were waiting around on the platform, and there was other trains that were supposed to go to Manchester. Back then, it was Virgin trains, and they were all being terminated. And that anyway, eventually got to Manchester, going via way of Warrington. But to go get a train to Warrington from one of the trains that were going up to Scotland, and then we had to walk from Warrington Banquee across Warrington town centre to Warrington Central, and then to get a train across to Manchester from Warrington, because it was the only way of getting there, because the line between Crewe and Manchester was closed. So it was 2 hours late I got into Manchester. On the way back, it was fine because it was all cleared by then. There was no problems, 6-7 hours later, all the way back. But I claimed for that one, and I got all my fare back for my outward journey. So the I think it was £25.60 or something. The day return, they give me £12.80 back. I got all of it back.
Not bad.
So yeah. So that was pretty good. Well, it wasn't very good. It wasn't good at the time. Hanging around Crewe station, twiddling your thumbs, going, and going to say to someone, "How am I going to get to Manchester then? Well, the line's blocked at the moment." Well, and it was me that suggested. I turned around and said, "Well, can I not just get on a train to Warrington and then walk across the town centre to Warrington Central and then get a train across into Manchester?" Well, if I just endorse your ticket, yeah, I can't see why not. But it was still 2 hours late getting there. Everybody else didn't think. Everybody else that didn't think that were probably still sat at Crewe station whilst I was already in Manchester. But it was just like one of the things, isn't it?
I always find that I usually ride on one of the very few publicly operated lines in the UK, which is Transport for London. So it's operated by the Mayor of London. And I always I have a very good. I can only 9 times out of 10, I think that's a really solid service, and I have very few complaints about it. Because I mean, they've upgraded all the trains are new, all the track is good, the signalling seems probably fairly modern. They've certainly been upgrading it all. I think overall, possibly one of the best operators in the country.
But then it should be, shouldn't it?
Yes, but
because of the amount, because it's just like in London, for example. The size of the population that you've got there and the amount of people that are moving around, pretty much all the trains are full to bursting. Well, obviously not at the moment they're not, but normally in normal times they're full to bursting. So it must make a profit to be able to reinvest that money back into the system.
It does. But what's quite interesting is that probably the most important lines in the UK, and probably some of the most profitable, are all run by the public sector.
I mean, I suppose the difference is as well with like London Underground, London Overground, and that is by and large they are run on an enclosed kind of system, which doesn't interact too much with other external problems. The problem with the rest of the railway network, so for example, the West Coast Main Line, an express train which runs every 20 minutes between London and Manchester, for example, will cross the path of many other trains on its route that are running at different speeds, local trains, freight trains, cross-country trains, all that, commuter trains, interim, because all that sort of stuff. So I suppose the potential for things to go wrong on its journey from London to Manchester, crossing the path of all those other things. And don't forget, they'll all be timetabled and slotted in together to pass each other at certain times. But then if one train this is what I was saying earlier, if one train is delayed, 9 times out of 10 that has an effect on another train, because that means that Virgin train Avanti train from London, when it gets to Rugby, it has to slow down and stop at a red signal because this cross-country train that's delayed by 2 minutes is coming in its path, whereas normally it would be able to shoot straight through if that train would be on time. Do you get what I mean? Whereas for the London Underground and Overground, it tends to run on its own enclosed system where nothing else tends to run much, and it shouldn't have. So you only get major problems where you have major issues like a signalling failure, or someone decides to throw themselves in front of the train and the line's blocked. So the potential for problems is reduced on that sort of system than on a mixed-use railway. But then that's again where you got things like TGV in France and things like that. Because it runs on its own lines, on its own network, it runs to time like nothing else. Well, because nothing else runs on the TGV lines. It's just the TGV. Do you know what I mean? The West Coast Main Line, you've got freight, you've got express passenger, you've got local passenger, you've got commuter trains. It's all running on the same route, and I suppose that's where the problems lie.
With a bit of luck, eventually we'll have the same system on HS2.
Well, this is one of the advantages that they're pushing for HS2, because yes, we can double capacity between London, the Midlands, and the Northwest, but also, and we can have high speed trains, which is going to cut journey times, but also they'll be running on their own network, so you shouldn't have they won't interact with directly with other services on other routes, you shouldn't have the issue. It should be more reliable.
This is the other thing that I was going to go on about with the kind of with the direct award versus franchising. I think one of the big differences. I will get back onto trains. Don't worry. I'm just going on a quick difference, and I think you'll agree this is definitely a difference. Is who runs the ticketing? Because you've got your ticketing with franchises. The franchises run their own ticketing systems. For example,
no, they don't. Do they?
Well, they do, as in what I meant. I'm not talking about the fares. I'm talking about the actual system. So, Transport for Wales, for example, have their own smart pass, and that can be used on a Transport for Wales train. But if I go to
that's only a new thing, though. If you go to the station and buy a ticket, it is done by it all comes through one central system, ticketing system.
Yes,
and then the money gets reallocated back to the train operating companies. But it's basically one central system.
Yeah, but it wouldn't work with what I don't think it would work quite right with what I was about to describe. So, when when you've got your train, you book a service on the system from, let's say, Shrewsbury to London Euston. You get one with the connection at Birmingham. When you do that, you end up with, at least you used to. I don't know how it works anymore. No, I think it does. No, you're right. It does have a central thing. You used to get 2 tickets, didn't you? I remember getting 2.
You do ticket splitting.
No, this was old. I'm talking sort of about 10-ish years, maybe 13 years.
I can't remember ever getting 2 tickets. The only 2 tickets I get were my outward journey and return journey. And maybe a ticket for a reservation. But then these days, it's all down on. I usually do it on the app anyway. But if I walked to the station, just pretend COVID wasn't going on. So if I walked to the station tomorrow morning and got on the Sunday morning tomorrow. So say I went to the station this morning and got on the 8:19 Avanti train to London. I go to the ticket and say I hadn't booked anything in advance and I wasn't using my app on my phone. I would either go to the ticket office or the ticket machine. I would ask for a return to London, and I would put my credit card in, pay for it, and I would split a ticket, and it would just say, outward journey Shrewsbury to London Terminals, return journey London Terminals to Shrewsbury. And obviously it depends on what kind of ticket I would get. Obviously I'm talking about an open fare, so I could use any train. So just talk, an open return. I could use any train out. I could use any train return. There's all different things with if you get advanced tickets or Apex tickets or whatever you call them, you can only use certain trains at certain times and all that sort of stuff. I'm just talking about an open fare, an open ticket, any train ticket. That's all it would say. I wouldn't have anything else on it. It'd just be one ticket. It's always been that way.
Yeah. Well,
weirdly, the general tickets that you get out of a station these days, the little cardboard tickets, they are exactly the same in style, look, and everything as they were when they were under BR. They haven't changed. The only difference is it's got the British Rail logo now, which is the same logo as before, which is we've kept all through privatisation. The only difference was years ago, it used to say next to that logo in words British Rail. They've dropped that. That's all. That's all its difference. And exactly the same tickets. We are moving over to more sort of smart ticketing now because I got one.
This is what I want.
So my season ticket is on that smart ticket thing, and I can tap in at Shrewsbury Station and I can tap out at Birmingham New Street, and it's all on there. Now I can use either a River Train. It's not a River Trains Wales. I can use either Transport for Wales or or what's it called? West Midlands trains. It's actually a Transport for Wales smart ticket, smart card, and I pay Transport for Wales for it. But I can use both operators. I can use any train between Shrewsbury and Birmingham. That's part of my season. That's part of my season ticket. Oh, and even Avanti West Coast, because there's a few trains that between Shrewsbury and Birmingham operated by Avanti, the London ones. So I can even use those, and I have done before. Saturday morning, I always used to try and get an Avanti. Now, if I'm on a Transport for Wales train, the guard that comes around and checks your tickets, or they haven't been checked for ages because they haven't checked tickets on the trains since COVID.
No.
But not that it's a problem for me because I've already gone through the ticket gates at Shrewsbury Station and I will go through tickets and gates again at Birmingham Street. But when they do used to come round, they've got a little sensor thing on their ticket machine where they just tap your card on that and they can see that it's a valid card. Now the only difference is when you travel with West Midlands Railway, because they haven't got the smart card system yet. It is coming apparently next year. So there is a bit of ambiguity there around trying to prove that you've got a valid ticket on West Midlands Railway service. But to be honest, I just used and they used to say yeah, fine. But it won't take much to have it interchangeable. Because there is there is a government review at the moment about the railway ticketing system going on. And some recommendations have been made, haven't they? And smart ticketing was one of them.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I can't see that. I mean, to be honest, I've said, and if Apple, going back to tech here, if Apple would open up their NFC chip on their iPhone to other things, this would work a dream. Get rid of the smart cards and have it on your bloody phone as an app, and you just tap your phone, a bit like Apple Pay on the Underground. That would be awesome, because then on your phone as well, if you ever get to an area which doesn't accept smart cards or something, or the scanner doesn't work, and you need to prove that you've got a valid ticket, you go into the app on your phone, and you show the conductor, oh look, it's on there. It's just like, which you can't do with a smart card because it's only like a debit card type thing with a chip in it.
What I want is this. I would like to turn all of the UK rail network, including high speed, everything, into one giant metro service. So it would all be run under one brand name. It would all be completely what's the name where I'm kind of going half sort of.
They don't even do that in France and Germany, Josh, where all trains are pretty publicly owned.
No, this is what I would like them to do: is make the whole thing one name, one big sort of unique, like one brand for the whole country, and you'd have obviously like different lines. You'd have line names, so basically make the whole country into London Underground. But what you would do is
that would be very complicated because there's so many lines.
Well, you just sort of use the names they use at the moment.
Which line are you on today? Oh, I'm on line 1576.
I mean, you can have names for groups of lines or something along those kind of lines, if you pun intended. So you would get charged a reasonable rate. You wouldn't get charged the hundreds and hundreds you do at the moment when you just walk up. And you'll be able to just go on instead of even needing one of those things, you just go on your Apple Pay on your phone, just like London Underground, and tap in, and you could just walk to whatever train you wanted, go wherever you wanted, tap out, and you would know at the end that the fare would actually not be totally extortionate.
Well, that's what's supposed to be next with these smart cards on Transport for Wales. So literally, you'll be able to tap in and tap out anywhere on the network. That's Transport. It'll be Transport for Wales only. Now, I don't quite know how it's going to work. It's going to work a lot like London Underground, so you can tap in and tap out. Now, obviously, the difference with London Underground is okay. It's a big network, but it's quite a small geographical area. So, I mean, they've got a daily cap, haven't they? Because I know when I've been down there, I think is it £10 a day or £10 something a day? Is the maximum that you can?
£10.80 or something.
Oh, I thought it was more. I've been charged more than that when I've been down there. Is that off peak? If you only use it off peak, and maybe it's more in peak if you use it in peak times. Then
No, it depends on what lines you use. If you use like
uh,
Emirates Airline, or if you use the
mm,
high speed from St Pancras to Stratford International, or if there's more, that doesn't get counted as part of the cap. What
anyway,
is? Or maybe it's gone
I'm,
up.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's more than that.
Right. So what does it say? The cap is whatever a daily travel card would be. I'm just looking up
Yeah.
now.
Now, anyway, the, when you're from that, so Transport for Wales are supposed to be doing something similar with this, and it's going to have a daily cap, which they haven't set yet when it goes live. Now, obviously, it's going to be a lot more than the London cap, because the problem is, obviously, a return ticket at the moment from, say, Shrewsbury to Milford Haven is probably about 70 quid. They ain't going to cap that at a tenner, are they? Because people are, they would lose money hand over fist. So I don't quite know how they're going to do it.
Well,
Whether they do it by region, I think it's going to start out on the Valley Line to start off with. So at the moment we've got the season tickets on it. So all the season tickets are on the smart card now, and you tap in. Now that's easy to do, because season tickets all have different prices between different stations. But obviously, what you do is you pay your what I do when I do my season ticket is I pay for my season ticket online, and then I get sent an email with a code on it, and then I go to the self-service ticket machine at the street station, or any station. But this applies to any station. But I go to the self-service ticket machine at the station. And obviously, a season ticket is either weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. So it depends which one I buy. I go with the annual one. I go onto the self-service ticket machine. It's almost as if, like, pretty much like if I'm picking up a pre-booked ticket. I put my debit card in that I paid with, or my credit card in that I paid with. I put the code in on the email, and then what all I have to do is hold my smart card next to the smart card reader, and it basically puts that ticket, almost, a digital version of it, onto my smart card, and
yeah.
that's it. Then it's loaded on there until it expires. So if it's an annual one, it'll be a year, and all I do then every day then as I tap in, tap out. That's how that works.
That's like an
Now,
oyster card, basically.
pretty much like an Oyster card, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how they do it. Just the tapping in, tapping. I mean, do you have to preload your card with money first? I don't know, because in London you don't. But then I suppose the daily cap is only a tenner, or something, or roughly around a tenner. I'm gonna call it a tenner. Just call it quits, and it's a tenner. Say,
Okay.
but yeah, say, but I mean, and that might work on, like, the new, what they're calling the Cardiff Metro, which is called the Valley Lines network in Cardiff, but it's going to be called the Metro because it's being turned into a hybrid heavy rail, light rail kind of network around Cardiff. Now I can understand that happening there. Say you have a cap of a daily cap of around a tenner, and you can travel all you like on that particular part of the network. But the rest of Wales is a bit of an interesting one. I mean, I don't know. Would you go online first and find? Say, for example, I wanted to go to Barmouth for the day in the summer, beach day at Barmouth from Shrewsbury. Now it's just over a 2 hour train journey there, 2 hour train journey back. I think if I went normally, it's about £22 for a day return.
Yeah.
So would I go online first and have a look? Oh, how much would that be? Oh, that'd be £22. Right, tap in, tap out, tap in, tap out. Then I get billed £22. It's one of them, isn't it? Because I think that's the only way that could work on over a larger geographical area.
Well, how much would you think that fare should be?
But £22, I think, is about right. I think.
Are there any fares you think are too high?
I think I always see. It's quite weird, actually. From Shrewsbury, there are some expensive lines and there are some relatively cheap lines. So the Cambrian line out towards Aberystwyth, Ferry Barworth, I always think pretty cheap, relatively cheap, and the train fares on that route are about right where they should be. So, for example, if I want to go to Barmouth for the day or Aberystwyth for the day, it's about £20. The Chester line, somewhat similar. So a day return to Chester was about £11.90, I think, the last time I went, which is an hour's journey. Birmingham line, it gets a bit more expensive because it's, I mean, obviously I've got a season ticket, but if I wanted to go a day return to Birmingham, it's about £15.90. Now, both in actual physical distance and train journey time, it's about the same to Chester as it is to Birmingham from Shrewsbury, and yet Birmingham is about £4 more expensive for a day return. But then things really take a turn when you go on to the Manchester route, because currently an off-peak day return to Manchester is now £27.80, and it's only an hour and 50 minutes on the train. That's really expensive.
Yeah.
And then you got to look at the Cardiff route, and it's the same basic route. The Manchester to Cardiff route is obviously an expensive route, because a day return to Cardiff from Shrewsbury is £38. It's a 2-hour journey.
Wow.
£38. And I think that's really expensive.
Sounds like I have a friend who lives in Plymouth who possibly is watching. Unlikely, but possibly.
What, Noah?
No, different friend. But I was looking to see how much it would be from Shropshire from Shrewsbury to go down there. And
I bet you it's more expensive. It's from London to there.
Yes, but I want you. So I was looking at 3 months in advance, all the right things, or in a sort of off-peak, sort of midweek. How much do you think the train line quoted me to go to Plymouth from Shrewsbury?
From Shrewsbury, probably somewhere in the region of about 130 quid.
130.
Yeah,
it was about that. It's 145.
Oh, I wasn't far off then.
No, yeah. But I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
It is, but if you go on to Ticket Split, I bet you could get it for about 60 by splitting your journey at either Newport or Bristol.
Yeah, it actually worked out cheaper.
And you have to go through those anyway.
It worked out cheaper to change my journey to go to London.
I think last couple of years ago, I went to Bristol for the day because I wanted to go and do some photography down in Bristol, and I got and I looked at a return from Shrewsbury Bristol. Now, years ago, they used to do a day return from Shrewsbury Bristol, and it was about 25 quid. I knew it'd be a bit more expensive than that because obviously it's been a few years, but they've got rid of the day return now. They don't do it anymore. It's just an open return, and there's no cheap fares, no advance fares between Shrewsbury and Bristol because there's no direct trains between Shrewsbury and Bristol. They don't do advance fares, and it was something like £75 for a return from Shrewsbury to Bristol. I'm fucking paying that. Now, I was being routed via Birmingham, because you can go via Newport as well. But that Newport was even more expensive. It's about £84. So I thought, well, hang on a minute, right. Let me see. How much is it then for a return from Birmingham to Bristol? All these fares come up. And for the trains that I wanted to travel on, I could get an advance, because they do advance tickets, because there's a train every hour between Birmingham and Bristol. Every 30 minutes, every half an hour between Birmingham and Bristol. I could get a return from Birmingham to Bristol on the trains that I wanted to travel on for £32. And then it's £15.90 for a day return from Shrewsbury to Birmingham. So that's what I did. Because that's changed to Birmingham anyway.
You got a season ticket there anyway.
This is going back before I worked at Apple.
Oh, right, yeah.
A few years ago. But, I basically got to Bristol back for less than 50 quid when I'd originally been quoted something like £75.
Quite a long way to travel for one day.
Not really, because it's only an hour to Birmingham and it's just over an hour from Birmingham to Bristol. The train's a bit quick, so it was quicker it's quicker to go from Shrewsbury to Birmingham that way than it is to go to London, because it's a 3-hour journey from Shrewsbury to London. Unless you get the direct one, which is a bit quicker, about 2 hours 45, because you haven't got to do the change thing, get off and get on another one. So it kind of goes straight.
It's only it's an hour and 20 minutes to get from London to Birmingham. London to Birmingham is what, an hour and 20 minutes?
It's about an hour. Yeah, it's about an hour and 20 minutes, and then it's an hour from Birmingham to
Yeah.
Shrewsbury. And if you get the express train, it can be an hour and 15 if you get the all stations one. So if you time it wrong, it can be a bit longer. But then I suppose you've got the 15, 20 minutes depending on your connection at Birmingham station as well. And I always used to like, if I'm changing at Birmingham, I like to leave about half an hour for my connection minimum, because if you get late, you don't want to. Because normally, if I'm doing that route, I've got an advance fare as well. So
Your stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know whether we should probably leave it here, because what's the time? It's got to be about midnight now.
Yeah, it is.
I can't even see the clock.
It is about. It's 10 past.
It's gone midnight. Yeah. So should we leave this discussion here? Nobody else joined us, did they?
No. I did message some people, but they never bothered to turn up. Oh, well.
Never mind. Right.
Bye.
Now we've just put the rail network to rights. Bye.